afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Design to Heal from Barcelona Harbor. It's Paul here. And once again, I call this Design to Heal because I see it all the time. We are designed to heal no matter what. And one of the core ways we can heal in EMDR is to go back in time and look at some of these formative experiences and to connect the event with emotions and then combine that with beliefs. And when we figure out those beliefs, we are often quite stunned to see how much we carry those beliefs into adulthood. And these beliefs were perhaps formed or created, oftentimes, I think, on the spot during traumatic episodes, during traumatic events. And so, what we want to do is to re-examine some of these beliefs and realize that either they were wrong all along, or that they no longer serve a purpose, or that they might have been legitimate, but they don't seem to carry weight anymore. But the ability of EMDR to bring together events and emotions and beliefs is something that, talk therapy has been trying to do this for several decades. And one of the reasons this is just not that successful is because these belief systems are formed from fairly primitive emotions during a fight or flight event of trauma, deep trauma, repeated trauma. And these individual traumas or the repeated trauma, where there is potential grave damage to myself, my body, or potential violence, sexual assault, near-death experience, a terrible accident, war, either as a civilian or as a veteran. These are all episodes where the emotions and the beliefs are formed while the brain is processing events in very much of a fight or flight mechanism, at the base of the brain. And these emotions are very deep and quite primitive. And the beliefs also can be, guess what, quite deep and quite primitive. And perhaps this is more true than not with, I want to talk today about mother. They say that with mothers, that mothers can push our buttons because they installed them. And so, you know, I would say many people, probably a very decent majority of people, have very likely healthy relationships with their mothers where there is a sense of care and love and nurturing and support most of the time. In many cases, many of our mothers are damaged. Very often it's generational damage, generational trauma. I can't emphasize enough how much our very advanced civilization, where people who are 25, 30, 35, they look like $1 million, right? They're extremely well kept, they're very handsome, the women are very beautiful, they're educated, they're some of the most educated people in the history of human civilization right now. We have more women graduating university than ever before. We have higher graduation rates. We have more wealth than we could ever imagine. And yet, underneath that, there is a 70 million person refugee problem right now. And we have a long history of Cold War I and Cold War II, where there are hundreds of millions of people all over the world in the last 50 years who have become generational, who have generational trauma because of coming out of Southeast Asia during the 70s and the 80s, right? Coming out of Central and South America during the 70s and 80s. Coming out of Africa during the 70s and the 80s. And now we have a new Cold War, where we are seeing tens of millions of people coming out of 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 damaged, profoundly damaged war zones all over the world. And obviously, this includes mothers who have been pulled out of these war zones in the last 10 years, and these individual people, young men and women who are in their 20s, who are now trying to get through college, university, working, who are also damaged. And so, we see a lot of wealth and affluence and amazing looking people, and these social network presentations on Instagram and TikTok that are amazing, and yet there's a lot of damage out there from countries that are in war-torn areas throughout northern Africa, all through the Near East, into the Middle East, and into several areas in Central and South America right now, into many, many countries in Africa, and obviously in the Ukraine right now, where we have millions of people who are war refugees, as I said, I see that in Barcelona, where there's so many of them. In many ways, my mother was a war refugee. She was born during a civil war in Ireland, and she was, inducted into the war's time, World War II in 1942. She turned 18. I was the youngest of 10, so my mother had me when she was like 43 or something like that. I was a generation older than many of my age. My mom would have been 20 years older than any other mom that of my classmates, and same with my dad. And my mom and my dad, came back from the war, very different people, completely different people. And I was talking to my brother about this the other day, and we had to agree that all of the damage that happened to both my parents happened way before any of us was born, and we just happened to have been on the receiving end of it. Now, and of course, you have in the Irish culture, you have, and we're seeing this um, in so many documentaries and docudramas, and another new movie coming out, which is getting all of this Oscar buzz with Cillian Murphy, something like all the little things, about these, the attitude toward unwed mothers in Ireland was they were just locked away and basically had become human slaves, and their children were either given away or disappeared if they were unwed teenage mothers. And so this kind of catastrophic approach, attitude toward the forced bringing to term children who of irresponsible relationships that people have when they're 16, 17, and they're not ready for life. This has profound consequences for everybody. And Ireland was rabidly anti-choice, and has made a big U-turn. My mom was part of that generation where there was bring to term at all costs, at any cost, right? And that had profound implications for some of my family members. And so so when you have various mothers from ethnic who are first generation ethnic groups, who have very traditional attitudes in fairly liberal democracies in Europe and the US, you have a profound clash. And first generation young adults have a great difficulty navigating a lot of what's going on with relationships, because they bring these very traditional attitudes about the role of women in the family to their relationships with women. And so I've seen a lot of this. Again, we have to really sort through, what are the belief structures that mothers have given to their sons that will often be copied, that will often be aped to their adult relationships with women, because it's what they know. Right? The mother is supposed to love them. The treatment of the mother toward the son is a reflection of love. And if that treatment is poor or adverse or bizarre or antithetical to to full a sense of freedom and choice and liberty, to allow women to make their own choices about their body at all times, right? There is a clash here, and this is where when I'm working with heterosexual men, it is a real, oftentimes a very eye-opening experience when they have to confront their belief systems about how they treat women, which oftentimes are a reflection or are all too similar to the way that their relationship with their mothers evolved when they were, adolescent into young adulthood. And so the EMDR, when it brings forth these individual memories that are profound, and or when there's a trauma, when there is cruel treatment, when there is coercion, when there is belittlement, when there is a sense of feeling made less than, especially if the mother is encountering alcoholism, which is very much a result of generational trauma, of people who've been through war, people who've had their families torn apart as they've traveled across the world, people who have seen terrible things as they have left war zones or have traveled to new places and need to adapt very quickly. And so these are the kind of elements of dysfunction, of poor mental health, of poor mental hygiene that sons can often inherit, receive, take for granted in the treatment that they receive from their mother. And this carries into the way that they treat women. I see it over and over again. And EMDR asks us to go back and to see what's going on. There's two vital questions. When you're asking a person to go back, and you're creating a relaxed environment where the person knows that their memory is their ally, that they feel safe and comfortable in their circumstances right now. And when this happens, there's an ease, especially with the bilateral stimulation of the backward forward movement of the hand, of the eyes, allows the brain, the right side and the left side of the brain, to communicate with each other. And you have that integration of time and place. This happened to me here, and this person did this. And what are the emotions that attached, interestingly, at the moment? And then what tends to come from that, that's what do you notice? What do you see, right? And the other question is, what are you feeling, right? What are the emotions that are being created at that time, that are stored in your body, right? What are the beliefs that are happening at that time? Right, and the beliefs are very often connected to the emotion. Beliefs are emotions, right? A belief is not a thought. A belief is an emotion, right? The things that we will die for, the things that we will go to war for, the things that we will commit to another person for a lifetime, they're beliefs, right? And oftentimes these beliefs can be damaging and broken and dysfunctional and unhelpful. These beliefs with belittlement, with anger, with rage, with mental illness, with hypersexuality, inappropriateness of a mother toward her son, right? Just inappropriate language, inappropriate tone, inappropriate touching, right? These are things that men take into adulthood as a belief that I'm an object. It's okay to be belittled. It's okay not to have boundaries. I don't believe that I am worthy of boundaries. I don't believe that I am capable of my own self-trust. I don't believe that I can trust my intuition. And a lot of this carries into adulthood, where men in this generation are lacking trust in their own sense of intuition and self-trust. And I think what is aggravating that is the early access to so much social media at 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, where that exposure to so much porn is aggravates this difficulty with women, because women in so much pornography are treated as, those acts are acts of aggression, they're acts of humiliation, they're acts of conquest, they're acts of brazenness, of an absence of boundaries, and then men, as they become 18, 20, 22, 24, are saying all of that needs to be thrown out, right? All of that is inappropriate, right? And so and when these things enter a boy's brain at 10, 12, 13, this is pretty deep stuff. That's why I'm really glad that Australia has banned the social media for people under 16. I think that is a way overdue. I think it's going to happen around the world. I think it needs to happen. It is way past the time that we need to do this. As I did a video on Friday about parental neglect, and neglect is almost as bad as verbal abuse when it comes to the effects on younger people. When parents just let their kids run wild and allow them to be on social media for 10, 12 hours a day, we shouldn't be surprised when young men can't find the language or the vocabulary to date women. When women start to completely distrust men and just go off on their own way with other women and stick tight. When so many people just don't have social skills. This is the consequence of utter neglect of children with phones. And so I think it's way overdue for phones to ban, for schools to ban phones. It's way overdue for national governments to ban phones for people under 16. We need to get moving on this very quickly, and we need to reflect on a new understanding of what it means to question our beliefs about what happened to us with mothers that came from generational trauma, and what happened to these men who are now in their 20s and 30s, who were the first guinea pigs of all of the stuff on the social media, and having trouble with establishing relationships with women because of that. We need to start having a very alive, aggressive debate about this. And EMDR is a great way to reframe some of these beliefs. And I've had a lot of success with men on this. And so that's it for today. Once again, Designed to Heal. And that's it for Mother today. We are designed to heal no matter where we've come from, no matter how much damage we've endured. I see it all the time, over and over again. So happy day.